Shalom. Today, we're going to dive into a profound and awe-inspiring topic. What is the glory of God? This isn't only a question of theology but a question of encounter. The glory of God is something that's to be both understood and experienced. So, let's explore this together, drawing from the insights of some incredible ministers, having dedicated their lives to experiencing and teaching about God's glory. First, the glory of God is often described as the tangible manifestation of His presence. It's when God makes Himself known in a way that we can see, feel, and experience. In Exodus chapter 33 verses 1:8 and 1:9, Moses asked God, "Please, show me your glory." And God responded saying, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you." Here, God equates His glory with His goodness, His name, and His very presence. Ruth Ward Heflin, known as a glory minister, who experienced and taught about God's glory extensively. In her meetings, people often saw a visible cloud of God's presence filling the room. She would say, "You praise until the spirit of worship comes, you worship until the glory comes, then you stand in the glory." For Heflin, God's glory was not just an abstract concept, it was a living reality that could be felt and seen when people entered deep worship. Secondly, the glory of God reveals who He is. When God's glory is revealed, we see His character, His love, His holiness, and His power. Isaiah chapter 6 verse 1-3 gives us a vivid picture of this. Isaiah sees the Lord high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the seraphim calling to one another, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory." God's glory in this vision is directly connected to His holiness and majesty. David Herzog, another minister deeply acquainted with the glory of God, speaks about how God's glory brings revelation. In one of his meetings, as the glory of God filled the room, people began to receive visions and prophetic words. It was as if the veil between heaven and earth was lifted, and God's nature was revealed to those present. Herzog teaches that, when we encounter God's glory, we are seeing a reflection of His true self, His power, His love, and His purpose for our lives. Thirdly, the glory of God is a catalyst for miracles and transformation. When God's glory is present, miracles happen, and lives are transformed. The glory carries God's power to heal, deliver, and change circumstances. In 2 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 18, Paul writes, "And we all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into His image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit." This verse tells us that God's glory is transformative. It changes us to be more like Him. One powerful historical example comes from the Azusa Street revival in the early 1900s. Led by William J. Seymour, the meetings were characterized by a tangible presence of God's glory. Eyewitnesses reported seeing a mist or cloud filling the room. In that atmosphere, people were healed, the blind received sight, and even limbs grew back. It was a profound demonstration of God's power and His ability to transform lives through His glory. Joshua Mills, a minister who often preaches the supernatural, shares that during one of his services, the glory of God manifested as gold dust on people's hands and faces. But it wasn't just about the physical sign. The real miracle was the transformation that took place in people's hearts. As they encountered God's glory, they were healed emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Mills teaches that God's glory is like a divine atmosphere that can bring heaven's reality into our lives, making the impossible possible. Lastly, God's glory calls us to respond in worship and reverence. It's not something we can take lightly. It demands a response of awe, honor, and deep respect. Psalm chapter 29 verse 2 says, "Ascribe to the Lord the glory due His name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of His holiness." This verse reminds us that God's glory is worthy of our highest worship. Bill Johnson, The pastor of Bethel Church in Redding, California, often emphasizes the importance of revering God's glory. He recounts times when the presence of God was so strong in their meetings that people couldn't stand, but simply fell on their faces in worship. Johnson teaches that the appropriate response to God's glory is always worship that acknowledges God's greatness and our own need for Him. So, what is the glory of God? It's the visible, tangible manifestation of His presence. It's the revelation of who He is, His holiness, love, and power. It's the catalyst for miracles and transformation in our lives. And it's a call to worship, drawing us into deeper reverence and awe of our Creator. As we close, let's invite God's glory into our lives. Let's ask Him to reveal Himself to us in greater ways, transforming us, healing us, and drawing us closer to His heart. Let's pray.